Tony, folks, it is going to start to finally feel like fall because of that front that's going to be sagging southward over the next few days, right? The arrival of fall. But that powerful nor'easter that we're waiting on is expected to impact millions of folks along the eastern seaboard. The entire coast, in fact, up to southern New England, looking at the potential of heavy rain, very gusty winds, and along the coast, it's all about that coastal flooding.
We want to bring in Brian Tang, Associate Professor of Atmospheric and Environmental Sciences at the University of Albany, I believe. Brian, good morning to you. We're trying to hone in on those specifics of this nor'easter, but it has yet to form. But I am wondering, as someone who studies nor'easters, what specifics are you looking at this morning? We understand things will change.
Yeah, I'm looking in terms of the hazards, concern about coastal flooding. The storm is mainly going to sit there for a few days and meander around, so there's going to be a long duration of onshore winds. And that push of water is going to cause storm surge over multiple high tide cycles. Additionally, the high pressure system to the north of the system is quite strong. So even though the storm itself isn't super strong, that squeeze play between the high pressure to the north and the low pressure to the south is going to cause some pretty strong gale force winds over the mid-Atlantic coastal region.
Yeah, RB and Frony in Isle of Palms, you're going to get a nice little gradient set up there. She mentioned some of the gusty winds. But as we look across the eastern seaboard, impacts will range, right? Especially once we see where exactly this nor'easter, this low, wants to track. Are there any particularly vulnerable areas for you specifically that you're watching right now?
The most vulnerable areas probably where the wind is directly onshore. So perhaps north of Cape Hatteras, where the winds would probably be, pretty much right at a right angle to the shore, where the onshore push of water will be the greatest, is my greatest concern. Particularly if the storm sets up, installs over just east of North Carolina, and that long duration fetch of wind is particularly persistent along that stretch of coastline. That's definitely my greatest concern right now.
And Brian, when we talk about it and we mention this word nor'easter, I think it's important to drive home the fact that it's nothing more than an area of low pressure. We see these lows that traverse the country all the time, but there are these unique atmospheric setups that make nor'easters prolonged, memorable, and in ways blockbuster when it gets cold enough and we can have some big snows. I guess there has been, in one of the conversations we've been talking about here this morning, how stubborn will that high be? Is it concerning to you that the wind and this nor'easter could be prolonged and maybe linger into next week, or is it too early to have that conversation?
Yeah, right now the models are indicating, the computer models are indicating that the storm will, persist and meander around for till Tuesday. So we're talking about maybe a few days of persistent rain and wind along the coastline. And the duration of storms can cause impacts to be worse. If you're, the beach is being battered by waves and gale force winds for 3 days versus, a few hours, that can cause a lot more erosion. If you're talking about storm surge over multiple high tide cycles, that can push water inland and flood low-lying areas. So the duration is definitely a concern here.
And it's just really interesting, too, that we have this area of low pressure that'll likely be able to scoop up some of the moisture from what is now a Tropical Storm Jerry. Just an interesting dynamic at play for this particular forecast, aiding in some of the heavy rain that we could see along the East Coast.
Yeah, it's this time of year where we're still in the middle of hurricane season. October is very busy, typically the second busiest month of hurricane season. But at the same time, the high latitudes are beginning to cool down. The days are getting shorter. So our normal storm systems that we get during the wintertime are starting to pick up and get more active. So sometimes a well-timed hurricane or even just a stream of tropical moisture, an atmospheric river, can entangle into one of these storm systems and can kind of generate hybrid storms that can have properties of both nor'easters and hurricanes. Hurricane Sandy being kind of poster child for one of these storms. But this storm is not going to be Sandy. I want to reiterate that.
Yeah, but there certainly could be some subtropical characteristics that we see play out, and perhaps a name from the National Hurricane Center that's assigned to this low.
Yep.
Not getting ahead of ourselves, but hey, had this been winter, we were saying this could have been some big snow for the Northeast. But also getting ahead of myself. We appreciate you chiming in on this conversation. I think the forecast is going to be an interesting one to watch as we head into Monday. Brian Tang, Associate Professor at the University of Albany. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.